Good morning. It's nice to be back. I've been here last year and the year before as well. Before I hand over the microphone to Nico from VfL, with whom we have been working for a while to try to make the football club a little bit greener, I just allow myself a few introduction words. My name is Sahm. I work for Forliance. Forliance is project developer. We develop carbon removal projects, nature-based, and we are also a management consultancy company. So we assist companies across the board, mostly industry, classical German Mittelstand, in their decarbonization efforts on their pathway to net zero. And it's not only classical industry, it's also football clubs, about which we will hear in a short while. Who would have thought, exactly 1 year ago when we were here, it was the first event after the lockdowns. And everyone was very cheerful, opening, meeting again, maybe thinking one crisis putting behind. While another one, the climate crisis, was hovering above our heads. And already thinking, what a package to simultaneously tackle these challenges. A year later, we face multiple crisis situations, which sometimes seem to be quite heavy on our shoulders. And next to climate crisis, environmental crisis, planetary boundaries, all of a sudden we have a massive energy crisis. We have a security crisis, which is all interlinked. We actually face war and peace conflict situations. One might say this one is already enough, quite heavy to bear. It was not the climate crisis, but the energy and security crisis that has led sports organizations to drive change, interestingly. The industry, football, we talk about, has announced this year, because of the complexity of these crises and the pressure, that clubs should reduce their energy consumption by 15 to 20%. So it needed 2 more crises to push basically the wave above the bar. I'm very pleased and also a little bit proud to say that VfL Wolfsburg is a club who had some foresight. It didn't need all what we have today to keep them thinking ahead and develop a vision. For almost 10 years now, this football club has been engaged in various sustainability efforts and is ranking consistently as one of the top 3, I might say, you can correct me, of the most sustainable football clubs in Germany. They started very, very early on to measure their greenhouse gases. They started very early to look into how they can reduce this. They were one of the first to actually set up a science-based target and a roadmap. And I have also the pleasure that my colleague Kars is here, who will also sit next to you at the round table, who has been doing a lot of these calculations. So if you have questions later, technical questions, feel free to also ask my colleague Kars. He can tell you a lot about all the numbers. And with that, I will just happily hand over to Nico, who will tell you a little bit about this journey. And if you have questions, as we know, I mean, very pressing questions, feel free to ask immediately afterwards. But then we are very happy to discuss this with you at the table. Nico, I kick the ball to you.
Well, thank you, Michael, and hello, everyone. I'm pleased to be here and talk a bit about our net zero strategy. And I won't talk about the offside rule or free kicks or the performance on the pitch, which is not quite amazing at the moment. Well, the women's team is performing as usually, but the men's team not at the moment. I will talk about the systematic approach on climate protection we started 10 years ago and put it on a new level 2 years ago when we partnershiped with the UN, the United Nations, and shouted out our race to zero. And as you see, the overriding target of our club's Thin Zen is to become net zero by 2025, which is quite early. Normally talking about 2030, 2040. But we wanted to have a goal or a target that is in the next years, because we want to emotionalize all our partners, our fans, sponsors, the whole family of the club to get engaged and become part of it. And if it's 2040, it's so far away. So with that, we put up this net zero target for 2025, and we want to get there through avoiding CO2 emissions by reducing and compensating at the end. And besides this, we implemented a reduction path that we calculated together with Forliance, or Forliance did it with us actually. And we have to reduce our CO2 emissions by 6.45 per year, so 55% in 2030. We have this base year in 2018 when we started. We actually had a goal or a target before just for the scopes 1 and 2. We started in 2012, so 10 years ago. And our ambition level become even more higher than 2 years ago. This is oriented, like Michael said, on the science-based targets. Right. And we, put up this 1.5 degree target, and just to have a measurable contribution towards it, like every organization in the world should have. Let's take a look at the process of our reduction measures. Like I said, 2020 in November, we shouted out our race to zero with a kickoff internally with all our employees, with the CEOs. We had scientists there to emotionalize everyone internally. And afterwards, we identified a lot of different measures. So we had a long list that came from sustainability audits we made the years before, from mobility analysis, things like that. So we had a lot of measures already, and also the expertise of Forliance came along the way. So what we did then with all this long list of measures, we ranked them, or our employees, the departments, the special departments, judged them somehow. Concerning political feasibility when it comes to absolute costs, CO2 reduction potential, but also looking on the communication potential, because this is also a role of football clubs. It's not only about doing your homework. As a club, you are kind of a role model with all the players, and this is another responsibility you have. So it's about also have an impact on communicating things you do, and you do good. And we also looked on the marketing potential, because we have 300 partners within our club, so there's a lot of potential to be a showcase and to get reach and content for our partners, and for us, it's beneficiary, because it's maybe cheaper when we work together within a corporation. And then we calculated, well, actually not us, Forliance did this job for us, especially cars, calculated those measures and put up a roadmap we will see on the next slide. And what we did next, we put up a budget for the first time for the whole club, not only for our department, but for infrastructure, for the business development, so for the whole club. And it's nowadays an ongoing process we are in. So reflecting what is working, what is not working, and also rework this roadmap you see on the next slide afterwards. Let's take a look at our CO2 footprint, which not surprisingly, there's a lot of CO2 in scope 3, especially about fan mobility. It's, I don't know if you can read it, but it's 60% fan mobility. It's then heating consumption, 18%. It's about employee mobility, the mobility of the teams. When you read the press a few weeks ago, you maybe heard of the French team, Paris Saint-Germain, and then this press conference where the coach has been asked why they traveled by plane. So there are a lot of different conflicts within football when it comes to CO2 reduction. We want the perfect pitches, so you need the heating of the grass somehow in the winter. You also need your fans for sporting success, and if you're sporting successful, you have to fly maybe international wise in the Champions League or in the Euro League. So there are a lot of conflicts. Not only we as a club, all clubs have to work together with the German Bundesliga, and that's what Michael were talking about earlier, about those criteria which have been set up, and it's just the first step, and we have to become more and more ambitious in the next years there. In all areas of the scopes, we have a responsibility, and also for fan mobility, and we looked in all those categories, and I think it's maybe hard to read, but on the next slide you can see this roadmap which has to be flexible at the end, because we are dependent on third parties at some points. It's here just a few examples how we could or can reduce our CO2 emissions, for example, by promoting climate-friendly mobility. Actually, tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, we have our climate action match days at our club for the women's and the men's team. It's about promotion of efficient car use, climate action days, like I said, conversion to 100% natural gas. For example, there we are dependent on the market prices, etc. It's about enabling more home office. So we implemented a lot of new guidelines in different areas. It's about the vehicle fleet. Activation of fans is a big topic through gamification also. Reducing jerseys, zero waste concepts, and maybe for you it's more a funny point to buns and bratwurst just from regional sources, and looking more on vegan food. But like I said earlier, we also have a communication role, and we have a lot of players in the sports sector generally who are vegans. So they can be role model for this topic. Normally they just do it for regeneration reasons, but they can also be as idols. They're a good role model for young people in the sector of food. I think we're working since 10 years and we're quite good, but maybe not good enough to reach those ambitious targets. So we looked at our structures last year, and what we set up is our OKR system, so a goal definition by the management. So they put up a climate target where all departments within the club aligned with and had to set up certain targets in their department. Worked also for the big target. We did a lot of different qualification workshops with all employees, but especially for an energy manager, we have quite new within the club, working with an energy software, an environmental manager, and a climate manager. And this team also implemented last year a management system, also looking on or doing a risk analysis and looking on climate risks. I think the internal activation is one of the keys, because climate protection is not only about putting up a strategy and setting up targets, it's also about the culture of the club. So what we do a lot is different workshop with all employees. We set up challenges for them. Also with the sports management, they're part of the project 1 hour, where we working regularly 1 hour on climate protection with the whole club. So, and a lot of different offers besides it come along the way for this internal activation. And I think the second, and I think even bigger key, is collaboration. So actions with partners. Doesn't matter if it's Volkswagen, probably you know we are a 100% subsidiary of the car manufacturer, and they are actually in the shift to e-mobility. So we're working closely on that topic with this Volkswagen together. It's a city of Wolfsburg for sure, building up the e-infrastructure. Fans we want to activate, but also sponsors, suppliers, startups. And actually we implemented last year a new startup program, and where we're scanning the market and looking for startups where the solutions for our problems, even in the topic of climate protection and CO2, and teaming up there with different partners, and you see some examples later on. Yeah, I brought along 3 examples just to make a bit more clear what we are doing. So it's about e-mobility, as I said. It's about renewable energies, working together with 2 partners there, with Compleo for building up the e-infrastructure. Volkswagen is giving up the products of the ID family. And we're working together with the city of Wolfsburg when it comes to putting up the infrastructure. So we're working in the advisory board of for climate there within the city. And it's not only about car travel, it's also about coming by bike, coming by feet. So we already did 2 mobility analyses in the past years, and we saw, that was for me quite surprisingly, that 60% of our fans, it would be the most efficient way to get to the stadium by e-bikes or pedelecs. So it's looking on the cost, looking how fast they get there. So we're not only building infrastructure for cars, we're also building them for e-bikes. For example, tomorrow when we have our action match days, we will open up new areas for pedelecs and e-bikes that can be used in the future. One of my favorite projects actually is the climate neutral shopping cart we implemented at the beginning of this year together with the climate tech startup Uke. And you see on the left side one of our female players, Alexandra Pop. And if you want to buy her hoodie, you can click within the shop on the product, and you see the product carbon footprint. So the material, the transport for the product, and you can compensate it if you want to. And actually, up to 12% are using this at the moment, which is quite good. I think, you know, when you're flying and do the same process with an airline, I think it's between 1-5% normally of the customers using those compensation tools, and it's 12%. And we're working together with a startup, fans, who can then support project in the global south, but also regionally. It's a mixed project, so to have a higher identification through the project in the region, but also have the compensation in the global south, working there together with an NGO. And you also can use the climate ticket. So if you're not coming by bus or you don't use the ID and you want to compensate, you can do it in the customer journey when you book your tickets. And the third, let's jump forward. And the third project I brought along is the conversation to organic cotton within the merchandise. And we're working together there with a supplier, the Brands Fashion, producing in India. Politics, we teamed up there with the GIZ and an NGO, in India itself and 6 other clubs of the German Bundesliga, and we're supporting the conversation from to organic cotton, and it's combined with a football project also in the region. And as you probably know, it's quite difficult to get organic cotton on the market. It's not so easy at the moment. So it's a long-term project for the next years, which helps us to shift or change the product within the shop, which are at the moment 20% sustainably certified products. And we try to make visible what we do. So if you come to our stadium, I hope if you haven't been there, you will join us one match. You see the Race to Zero countdown to make it visible for our fans, for our partners, for our sponsors, startups, everyone who's in the stadium. In best case, 30,000 people, and to get them into the Race to Zero. And like Michael said earlier, this road, it's a journey since 10 years. So actually, we've been the first club in the world to publish a GRI certified sustainability report. We had the first CO2 footprint in 2011 together, set up already a target for climate protection, and became even more ambitious these days. And it's not the only topic we're working on. We're also working on biodiversity. We put up new solutions for microplastics with another startup. So there are a lot of different topics we're actually working on in the fields of environment. And you can find all this in the sustainability report. Next one is going to be published in mid-November this year. I think that's it from me for the moment. I don't know if you want to.
There's not much more to add. I think, especially since our core topic today is Scope 3, and you have seen the impact of Scope 3. So it's the lion's share, and Nico has said that's the big thing to tackle. And I can imagine that all of you have quite a few questions also regarding this. So we're looking forward to see you and discuss this at the table. Thanks for your attention. Thanks, Nico, and see you at the table.
Thank you.